Good afternoon. Welcome to members and the public to this meeting of the North Yorkshire Council's Skipton and Ripon Area Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Nathan Hull, Chair of the Committee, and the Vice Chair is Councillor Andy Brown, who's sitting to my right over here. Today's meeting is being audio recorded and will be made publicly available in the next few days on the Council's website. Recording is allowed at Council Committee meetings. I've not been notified that anyone has contacted Democratic Services that they wish to record the meeting today, but if there's anyone present who does intend to record the meeting, could they make that known now, please?
Is there a possibility of turning the volume up a little bit?
It's very difficult to hear what you're saying.
If I speak like that, is that better?
Yes, much better.
Right, I'll try and remember to speak like that. Okay, thank you.
I think that applies to everybody, every speaker.
The acoustics are not fantastic in the room, I'm afraid. In terms of housekeeping, could ask everyone to please ensure that their mobile phones are switched off or kept on silent, and please can members always use their microphone when speaking so your voices can be heard by the public and will also be properly recorded for the council recording. I've not been made aware that there is a fire alarm expected this afternoon, so if the fire alarm does sound, please make your way out of the nearest fire exit and gather in the main square at the front of these offices. The officers in attendance today to support this meeting are Stuart Mills, Development Management Team Manager, Helen Goulden, Principal Goulden, is that right? That's right. Yeah, Principal Planning Officer, Kelly Dawson, Solicitor, and Vicky Davies from Democratic Services. So moving on to item 1, apologies for absence. Vicky, have we received any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. I've got apologies from Andrew Williams and the substitute is Councillor Nick Brown. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, minutes for the meeting held on 10th November 2025, which are on pages 3 to 14 of the agenda. Does anyone have any comments on the minutes? If no amendments proposed, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Okay, Councillor Bronigan and Councillor Ireton. So the minutes are approved as an accurate record. If you could just bear with me, I need to sign them. Thank you. So, agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Does anyone have a declaration of interest to declare? Councillor Brown.
Yes, it's a non-fiduciary interest, I suppose, and I'm on the committee that's, but I'm also the councillor for Bishop Monckton on North Yorkshire Council. So I just wanted to say that I've attempted in all respects to keep a balanced view, and I'm not predetermined on this application.
Thank you, Councillor Brown, that's noted. So moving on to substantive business, agenda item 4, which is the application for residential development of 58 dwellings, including access, landscaping, public open space and associated infrastructure at land at Moor Road, Bishop Monckton, on behalf of Alpha Homes Limited. So if I could pass over to the case officer. If I could pass over to the case officer to introduce her report.
Can't hear a word you say.
Well, I will do my best to shout. If you'd like to move a little bit forward.
When you're speaking to me, I can hear you.
Yeah.
But when you're speaking officially, you mumble into the microphone.
Well, I'm doing my best not to mumble. If you'd like, if you're struggling to hear, if you want to move a little bit forward. I'm doing my best to shout as loud as I can.
You're not.
Okay, if you'd like to quieten down, we'll move on with the meeting. Your comments are noted, but if we could have no more interventions from the floor. I've taken on board what you said, but it's not a public tete-a-tete and to and fro. I've noted what you said, and we'll do our best to speak up. So I'm going to introduce the case officer. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, as the Chair has already introduced the scheme, this is a scheme for full planning permission for residential development of 58 dwellings with access, landscaping, public open space and associated infrastructure. This slide shows the application red line boundary. The application site, I'm sure you're all very familiar with it, but it's on the western edge of Bishop Monkton Junction, at the junction of Moor Road and Knaresborough Road. The site is enclosed by a mature hedgerow along its boundaries and is split into two parcels of land by an existing hedgerow which runs east to west through its centre. Gated access is both from Moor Road to the northern portion and also gated access to the southern field is from Knaresborough Road. As you can see from this plan, adjoining the site, southern site boundary is a residential property, the Old Vicarage, which is a non-designated heritage asset. Agricultural land bounds the site to the west. There are two residential properties, Woodgate Cottage and Warwick Cottage, adjoining the northwest corner of the site. There are residential properties located on the opposite sides of Moor Road and Knaresborough Road facing towards the site. This next slide is an extract taken from the local plan policies map. It shows Bishop Monkton Village, which is classified as a service village in the council's settlement hierarchy. The red line on the plan shows the development limit for the village, and you can see that the application site lies within development limits. The plan identifies the land allocations for Bishop Monkton, and those are on the plan coloured up sort of pale orange, where the northern half of the site is allocated with reference BM2 and the southern half with reference BM4. Excuse me. Both allocations are for housing development. You can also see the other site allocation in the village, which is reference BM3 to the southeast of the site, which is landed Church Farm, where 23 dwellings were allowed on appeal in May 2024. From this extract, you can also see the application site's location in relation to the Bishop Monkton Conservation Area, and that's the area that's hatched. That's the hatched area on the plan, and you can see that there is actually intervening development existing between the site and the conservation area. You can see the blue line there, which shows the line of the Bishop Monkton Beck, which lies further to the south of the application site, and its route through the central area of the village. There's also an existing watercourse to the northeast of the village. Okay, this next slide shows the proposed site layout. You can see that the main vehicle and pedestrian access would be from Knaresborough Road, with access for emergency vehicles and secondary pedestrian and cycle access from Moor Road. The scheme has been designed to provide a pattern of development appropriate to its edge of settlement location, in terms of it's got staggered arrangements of plots and angled orientation of the houses, which help to create a sort of more loose, informal layout. Properties have their primary frontages facing onto either Moor Road or Knaresborough Road to ensure site frontages are outward looking. All other properties would front onto the new internal road and public open space to ensure strong street presence and good passive surveillance across the site. At the centre of the site is an area of public open space. This would include a children's play area. Substantial areas of landscaped open space are also provided around the perimeter of the site. The central public open space area would also contain an attenuation tank and pump station as part of the proposed surface water drainage infrastructure. The tank would be underground and the pump station screened by hedging. All parts of the development would be connected both within the site and connected to the existing village. The areas of public open space would be linked through a series of internal pathways, which you can see around the site through the landscaped areas. And these connect all parts of the site with both the access points to Moor Road and Knaresborough Road. Excuse me. From Knaresborough Road, there are proposed new footways and also 2 pedestrian crossings to allow access to village facilities. Other highway improvements include the installation of a raised table at the junction of Moor Road, Knaresborough Road and Huntgate to manage highway safety. A key feature of the site is landscaping. Hedges and trees to site boundaries would be retained and enhanced with new native planting, including new trees throughout the site. The central hedge running east to west through the site is also proposed to be maintained. All areas of open space and landscaping, including the central hedge and the hedges around the site perimeter, will be managed by a management company. Turning to the houses are 2-storey with the exception of 4 bungalows located to the northwest corner of the site. Houses range from 1 to 4 bedrooms, all of which exceed national internal space standards. Each property has their own private garden, with garden sizes meeting recommended sizes for the occupancy level. In terms of sustainability, each property would have an electric vehicle charging point and solar panels on the roof. Off-street parking is provided by a garage and/or parking spaces to the front or side of properties. This next slide shows the location of 23 affordable homes across the site. They are well integrated with the market homes. Market homes are sited either opposite or either side of where the where the affordable housing units are, to ensure that they are integrated. There'll be 16 social rented and 7 shared ownership homes. All the affordable homes would be built to be accessible and adaptable, which is to the standards of M42 of building regulations, and 4 bungalows will be designed to be wheelchair accessible from the outset, meeting M43 standards. A portion of the market homes would also be designed to be accessible and adaptable. Okay, sorry about the delay. This next slide identifies key plots which are feature properties or corner turners where they have active frontages on 2 elevations. So you can see that where the plots are coloured purple, they would have frontages that would both face onto the street and also onto areas of open space to ensure that they appropriately address both the street and public open space. This will ensure that there aren't any blank elevations on prominent locations and all areas of the site are well overlooked. It's quite difficult to see, it's quite small, but the next slide shows the various street scenes to show how the scheme would appear. The top one is a view along Knaresborough Road. The large gap between the houses shows the entrance to the site. Second one down is the houses that would face on the southern part of the site facing the internal road. Third one shows the Moor Road frontage, and the fourth one shows the row of houses along the western side of the site that would face outward across the fields. As you can see from the slide, a key feature of the development here shows the variety of proposed house types and materials. Materials comprise a mix of brick, render and reconstituted stone and grey concrete or terracotta pan tiles to the roof. The next few slides just give a couple of examples of some of the house types. This one here shows one of the brick affordable semi-detached houses. This next one is one of the detached houses in render. And this house type actually is one of the feature or corner turning properties where there are active frontages on both facing elevations. So the one on the top left hand of the slide would actually be the front elevation, whereas the one on the top right is actually would be a side elevation but would face onto one of the areas of public open space. This next one is one of the larger detached houses with integral garages with a mix of brick and render to the elevation. And then finally, this next one is an example of one of the affordable bungalows, semi-detached pair of bungalows. Okay, turning to drainage. This slide shows the site in relation to the existing drainage infrastructure. You can see here the Bishop Monkton Beck, which runs through the centre of the village and carries on east of the village. At the top end of the plan, and again, apologies, it's quite difficult to see, but there is a dashed line showing the line of an unadopted surface water sewer. And where you can just about make out some red annotations and arrows pointing to that sewer at the top there. And as I say, that's an unadopted surface water sewer, and next to it is an existing watercourse. The next slide this shows one of the options for surface water drainage. There are two proposed options for surface water, I should just say. This slide shows option 1, where a new connection, surface water drain, a new connection would be from the site, would be laid along Hungate, leading to Bishop Monkton Beck at St John's Road. So the outfall would be around here. The next slide shows, this is option 2, and here a new pipe would be laid from the site that connects to the existing surface water sewer constructed by Pebble Developments, part of this development up to the north of the junction, and their sewer outfalls to a watercourse northeast of the village, thereby avoiding the central village area. Now, this existing infrastructure has not yet been adopted by Yorkshire Water, and so therefore to facilitate this, consent would be required from third-party landowners until such time that the infrastructure is adopted. I would just say that Yorkshire Water and the lead local flood authority have not raised any objections in respect of either option 1 or option 2. Next few slides show just some photographs around the site. They are taken at different times of the year, so you will see a difference in the leaf cover. This first slide shows the photograph taken in summer looking towards the site and shows the junction of Moor Road, Knaresborough Road and Hungate. The next slide taken in winter and shows the site frontage along Moor Road. This photo looks across the northern field southwards towards the central hedge. You can just see the top of the old vicarage in the background there. And this site is looking westwards across the northern part of the field. Although it's in winter, you can still see how the central hedge is a prominent landscape feature of the site. This is a view of the field on the southern half of the site taken from Knaresborough Road. And finally, for the photographs, this is a photo looking along Knaresborough Road opposite the site. In terms of the existing properties here, you can see the different materials such as brick and render and features such as chimneys and bay windows exhibited by the existing properties. And these materials and features have been picked up in terms of the treatment and detailing of the proposed houses. The next, I would just refer to officer update of the officer report. Firstly, in terms of statutory consultation responses, since the officer report was published, a further response from Yorkshire Wildlife Trust has been received. The Trust wish to confirm that their previous consultation response to the application still applies and their views expressed remain valid. Just in summary, the Trust raised the following concerns in terms of impact on wildlife and biodiversity, impact upon the Bishop Monckton Railway cutting sink due to increased visitor numbers, and also that sustainable drainage systems should be incorporated into the scheme. We have also received some further local representations, including from the Bishop Monckton Action Group. I believe copies of these have been circulated around, so I won't go into details with this because they're in front of you, but effectively highway safety, treatment of shared boundaries, cumulative impacts of development, gypsum, Grampian condition requiring works to be done, and also the fact that a neighbourhood plan is being developed. I think the only thing I would say here on those is that most of the issues raised are actually covered in the officer report. Also as well, just to clarify the treatment of the shared boundaries. If it wasn't made clear in the officer report, the existing site boundaries currently have hedges, and they're proposed to be retained and enhanced where needed. And the hedges all around the site boundaries will form part of the public open space, which will be managed by a management company. So just to clarify that point. And in terms of the neighbourhood plan, this is at a very, very early stage, and I'm sure legal can correct me if I'm wrong, but that would mean that currently as it stands, that would hold no weight. Moving on, to the officer report, there's just one correction. Section 7 lists the consultation responses received from statutory consultees. Yorkshire Wildlife Trust comments are missing from the list of consultation responses received. However, I would say that the Trust comments are referred to in the main body of the report, in the main assessment section of the report, specifically paragraph 10.67, and the issues that they raised are discussed in paragraphs 10.68 and they're discussed in paragraphs 10.68 to 10.76. And then finally, just a couple of changes to recommended conditions. Condition 2, which is the approved plan conditions, that missed off some wording at the beginning to say that the development should be carried out in accordance with the list of plans. And also a new condition is recommended with regards to the biodiversity game plan, which is a mandatory requirement, but there needs to be a condition there to ensure that the measures and detail of the biodiversity game plan should actually be implemented in accordance with the approved plan once it's been approved. And finally, just to conclude the presentation, I would just say that for the reasons set out in the officer report, it is recommended that planning permission is granted, subject to conditions and the planning obligations set out in table 1 of the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I just clarify something on page 44, please? This is the draft heads of terms for the section 106 agreement. The education contribution, that's £199,395, isn't it? Not £199 and 0.395 pence.
Yes, that's correct.
Does anyone have any questions for the case officer?
Sorry, could you repeat just what you asked us?
Yes, on page 44 of the report, the education contribution under the Section 106 agreement could be read as saying £199 0.395 pence. It's actually £199,395. Just. Yes, just clarifying that. I'm going to go to Councillor Brown and then Councillor Ireton.
Yes, I'm very interested in the drainage issues, method 1 and method 2, and in the conditions. Just a couple of questions about method 2. Who owns the land that goes over is the first question.
Well, it's Kebble Homes Development Infrastructure, and then the parish council because the infrastructure goes underneath the playing field.
Okay, so a substantial amount of it belongs to the parish council. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, the situation is method 2 is method 1 and method 2. There's a big difference between the two.
Yes.
And the implications are that sewage would go into the area around St John's Road by method 1, whereas method 2 it would bypass and go much further down the beck. And presumably be much more acceptable to local residents and to everybody.
Yeah, sorry, can I just clarify, when you say sewage, we were just talking, the options are here for surface water drainage.
So it's just surface water drainage we're talking about? Okay. I'll want answering where the sewage goes as well in a second. So it's just surface water we're talking about there. Could I understand condition 15? Under condition 15 it says very little about foul and surface water systems. It just says the site shall be developed with separate systems of drainage for foul and surface water, and the separate systems should extend to the point of discharge to be agreed. I want really legal advice on whether we can insist on method 2 rather than method 1, and where that sits and what kind of condition would be possible.
Can I was just going to say there is, I agree that that is just a compliance condition with regards to just ensuring that there are separate systems of foul and surface water drainage. If I can just draw your attention when I find it, there is a much more detailed recommended condition, condition 13. And this goes back to the two options here. This condition effectively says that the development can't commence until a final scheme has been submitted to and approved in writing by the local authority. And then it sets out the various stipulations that have to be, various criteria that has to be met, including details of maintenance and management as well, and the fact that none of the development can't be brought into use until these works have been done. And this basically allows for the developer to submit the final scheme, whether it be option 1 or option 2.
So I mean, I have got that highlighted already.
Yeah.
So can I just understand that? So that basically is giving you the ability to say, that is giving you the ability to say, we do not accept option 1, we only accept option 2, if option 2 is practical. Is that basically where we are?
If I may, Chair, just because Councillor Brown did express a desire to hear from legal on this point, obviously you have to determine the scheme that is before you, and that scheme that is before you, the applicants have submitted an option A or an option B. Now they've said where their preference is, but obviously one of those options relies on third-party permissions that are not yet in place because Yorkshire Water have not yet adopted those works. So it's not in our gift to insist on one of those two packages where both options that are being put before you, or as part of those applications, have been assessed by both the Lead Local Flood Authority and Yorkshire Water, and there is no objection to either of those two schemes. So it would not meet the conditions test to insist on one or other of those schemes to be submitted. But obviously the conditions are drafted to allow that flexibility of which scheme comes forward.
I think I'll save it for debate.
Can I just check though, so because we can't insist on that at the moment. What we're saying is, if I'm clear, option 13 allows us to condition the rate of runoff from the site, whether it be through option 1 or option 2, so that the rate of runoff is controlled at perceived acceptable rate. Is that correct?
Yes, it is, and the condition actually stipulates there the maximum flow rate of 8.9 litres per second, which is green equivalent of Greenfield rate.
But can I just clarify, does it do more than that and give you the right to say, if practical, scheme 2 rather than scheme 1, does it put you in control of that?
Quite all right. Hi, sorry, I'm David Piercy, I'm from the Flood Risk Management team. That might help if I just perhaps provide a bit of clarification around why there are two options. So whilst the discharge to the northeast going across the cricket field is preferred, currently because that's got third party ownership and is not currently adopted, the reason they've had to put the reserve option is in case that doesn't become formally adopted, or if the parish council / Kebble Homes don't give permission for the applicant to connect into that pipe. Because they need that third party consent in order to do that. At the point that Yorkshire Water adopt it, they can discharge into that pipe. And everything's fine. So that option that goes down the road to Bishop Monkton Beck is purely so that they currently have a point of discharge. Because of the situation with the third-party consent, and because it's not yet formally adopted by Yorkshire Water, you can't say that they've got a guaranteed point of discharge at this point in time without that other option being on the table. Hopefully that makes sense.
Can I just say something? So it may have been a little bit better for us if option 2 had been presented as option 1, because the thoughts are that option 2 is the backup option, whereas option 1 is the preferred option. But what we're saying is it's actually the other way around. Option 2 is the preferred option, and option 1 is the backup.
So yeah,
right, okay.
Just to clarify that, option 2 is the preferred option of the developer. It states that in their flood risk assessment and discharge drainage sort of statement. Preferred option of the Lead Local Flood Authority as well, because obviously it makes far more sense to route it that way. Like I say, it's just, I think it's option 1 and 2 in the order it is, because option 1 is the one that was first put forward.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily the preferred option.
But we're saying that both option 1 and option 2 are acceptable to you?
Yes.
Councillor Ayrton, I think you were next in line.
Thank you, Chairman. One of the major concerns, I think, through the residents and the objections that I've seen is the sewerage. And yet we've got on the consultation responses from Yorkshire Water no objections, apart from recommended drainage. Have they, in that consultation and response, have they recognised the problems of the sewer spewing out through the manholes, etc.? Are they aware of the concerns within this community of the public health problems? Or is it just a no objection?
The response received from Yorkshire Water is obviously just commented on what is actually in front of them in terms of the proposed development, and it basically said they have raised no objections.
Yeah. So there doesn't sound as though they've assessed whether this development can deal with the extra sewerage of it. I mean, we have got our hands tied as a planning committee to take these on board, because the so-called expert witness is saying no objections to it. Now we're hearing from the public and the residents of this village that there is a major problem, that our hands are tied to refuse upon that, and I find it unacceptable. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to go Councillor Brown, then Councillor Brodigan.
Thank you, Chairman. I was sitting in this room, I think, in 2024, and looking at the Keble Homes application, which went to appeal subsequently. And the officers of North Yorkshire Council specifically stated that Yorkshire Water was a statutory consultee. And those that were here then will remember that, I'm sure. Subsequently, it turned out that Yorkshire Water is not a statutory consultee. Can we have confirmation that that is the case, please, from the planners?
So just double checking, my understanding is that they are a statutory consultee.
Can we ask the legal person to tell us the reality of that, please?
I think, Chairman, I think we're just going to double check as to not mislead anyone on the exact status, whether or not they're just a consultee or a statutory consultee. There could be some confusion between a statutory undertaker and consultee, because Yorkshire Water are a statutory undertaker and have a duty to deal with the sewerage and the capacity issues in that respect. So I think there's two slightly entwined questions in one. So if it's all right with you, Chairman, can we come back to answer that question? We'll just
if you can determine that, because we were given, I think, misleading information regarding everything to do with sewage at that meeting last year. And it is very important. And my second question, was Yorkshire Water invited to attend the meeting today? Because it would have been very helpful to have heard their views. Because I know jolly well, and this is not a matter for now, but maybe in debate, that Bishop Monkton, along with several other of my parishes in my division, have had major problems with sewage, which my colleagues will have seen has been circulated, and sewage on the streets, with manhole covers being blown off, etc., etc. And just to be told that Yorkshire Water say they have no objection is unacceptable in my view in this day and age, when sewage comes out onto the streets in this village. And so it's very important that we have the view that if it's just a mere consultee and they say we've no objection, but we're quite prepared to accept the connection figures that they get, which I think I'm right in saying is around £1,000 a house. Of course they want extra money, but the misery that has been experienced in this village, which I know personally has happened, is unacceptable. I will leave till debate a suggestion that I have, because I think it's premature to choose either method that we're talking about, the treatment of sewage, until we have more detail. I don't know whether that's possible to get from Yorkshire Water, because in the past they've said that they were near capacity, whatever the situation was, at this village, and outflows have been more and more used in ordinary rain, heavy rain, much to the disappointment of the villagers.
Do you want to come in now?
Yeah, would you like to? Thank you, Chairman. So water companies are not a statutory consultee currently for a new development. They are a statutory consultee on the local plan process. They are a statutory undertaker for the purposes, and I don't know if you want me to come in at debate, Chair, or now to just give an answer on the statutory undertaker position, because I'll save it for debate, actually, Chair, and see where the debate goes on that point.
So when it comes to planning applications, they're not a statutory consultee, but when it comes to the local plan, which I can understand, they would be consulted in a general way. Is that correct, in layman's terms? So basically, when they say they have no objections, that's just their opinion.
It is good practice. Whilst it is not a statutory requirement to consult them, it is a matter of good practice to do so, which is obviously what the authority does. Where you receive a consultation response from someone, then you should have regard to that consultation response, so far as it is material to a planning application. I think we'll go into the functionality of them as a statutory undertaker, but where you get any consultation response, whether it's from a statutory consultee or otherwise, you should have regard to it as far as it is material.
Okay, we'll wait until later to discuss that, but all I wanted to know was that are the plans aware that the MP for this area, Sir Alex Shelbrooke, has been, I think, waiting for information from Yorkshire Water regarding Bishop Monckton and other villages in my division about the very nature of the problems that they're suffering by not investing in local sewage infrastructure. Are you aware of it?
I'm not sure, with the greatest respect, it has any relevance on the application that's before us today, so I'm not sure that we can actually give any weighting to any lobbying that the MP has done, because it's kind of falling outside of the application in front of us.
It's not just the MP, it's the local councillor as well, and the parish councils who've been involved, waiting for Yorkshire Water to come back and tell us what they're going to do in Bishop Monckton, which is very relevant to this application.
Thank you, Chairman. Existing issues in that locality are, I suppose, exactly that for these purposes today. There are existing issues that the MP and the local members may be lobbying and working with Yorkshire Water and the local community to try and resolve. But for today's purposes, this is a meeting of the Area Planning Committee to determine this application on its planning merits, not existing issues in the locality. We just need to have regard to the consultation responses and set this application on the application details before us.
I'll wait until later.
Councillor Brodigan and then Councillor Ireton again, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also going to talk about Yorkshire Water and the sewerage system. I mean, Yorkshire Water have already said that Bishop Monckton is near capacity, and I think it's disgraceful. They've actually not given us any guarantees with regards to this development, how that would affect capacity and whether it would be overreached. Can you confirm that North Yorkshire Council cannot make it a condition that Yorkshire Water first takes necessary steps to ensure that the system can cope? I mean, we have been told about the Grampian conditions, but I understand that is not applicable in England. Is that correct?
Chairman, if I may, I think we may as well just deal with that issue. So, under the Water Industry Act, as a statutory undertaker, there is a general duty on that undertaker to provide, improve and extend its public sewage system to ensure effective drainage. So that onus is on the statutory undertaker, so in this case it's Yorkshire Water. A developer then has a statutory right to be able to connect to the public sewage system, and a statutory undertaker cannot refuse. It is their duty to provide that capacity. So we've got a statutory undertaker who has a duty to provide that capacity. If they say to you, we do not have that capacity, which is not the case on these consultation responses, but if it were, that is when it is open to the planning authority, provided the condition meets the conditions test, to attach a condition to such consent to make sure, so that you can be satisfied that the capacity issue is resolved prior to commencement or prior to occupation. Obviously, I stress in this case we do not have a consultation response from Yorkshire Water as we do on other applications where they say there is no capacity. You tend to get two types of consultation response, one effectively saying there is capacity or one saying there is not capacity. And where there is not capacity, they have a duty to create that capacity and deliver it. But as a planning authority, you may feel that you want to attach a condition in that scenario. That was quite a convoluted and lengthy answer, but hopefully that answers your question, Councillor Broden.
Well, not really. So what you're saying is, because they've actually said nothing, we can't apply any condition, is that correct? Because they've actually not told us. All they've said is that it's near capacity, which is how long is a piece of string. I mean, that doesn't take into account the church farm development, whether it's what is near capacity. And they haven't said whether this development would actually take it over capacity. We don't have that information.
Can I just clarify? Is the situation such that if Yorkshire Water are willing to accept an application to connect into their sewerage system, then we proceed? Their obligation, once they've accepted that application to connect into their sewage service, is then to deal properly with the discharge. Now, we may all have our opinions as to whether or not they will properly deal with the discharge, but are we saying their obligation is, once they've accepted the connection, is then to deal with making sure that it's properly discharged?
Thank you, Chairman. No, what I'm saying is it's their duty to provide that framework. The developer has a statutory right to connect. They do not have the right to object to that connection. What they have is a statutory duty to provide the capacity.
Sorry, I think, yeah, maybe I didn't.
Maybe I didn't frame my question quite well enough, but what they're saying is they have a duty to provide the connection, and then their duties going forward are to deal properly with the flow and the discharge. And I think what we're questioning is, do they deal properly with the flow and the discharge?
No.
Well, but my concern is that that's actually not a question that we can ask as a planning committee. That's a question that comes further down the line if there is a problem and they at that stage then fail to deal properly with the discharge. It's at that stage that, I don't know, the relevant water authorities step in and hold Yorkshire Water to account. So what we're basically saying is, in some respects, we're almost powerless to do anything about the connection, and if there is a subsequent problem, that's for down the road and that's for another body to take care of, not for the planning committee to deal with.
Is that right, Chairman? Because if we are going to approve something that will create a problem of severity, in my view, with sewage on the streets, do we not have some powers here?
No.
Is that what you're saying? Do our planners...
That's what I'm seeking clarification of.
Yeah.
Essentially, where there would be a situation where Yorkshire Water, in their consultation response, have said that there is a capacity issue or this development would overload the capacity, then that is where we would be looking at attaching a granting condition to ensure that is remedied and rectified and could then deliver satisfactory. But obviously I must stress on this application we do not have a consultation response that says that there is insufficient capacity to take the development.
Are we not able to ask for that?
Well, you have the consultation response before you that says, it might be helpful if we can get out the exact wording on the consultation response and we'll come back to that question.
Yeah.
I would just step in and just say that Yorkshire Water have been consulted on all of the drainage options. So they've been consulted, I think 3 times now, and each time it's come back. So they've had every opportunity to, if there was a concern from their side, they'll have opportunity to voice that.
Said no comment.
Councillor Ireton.
Yeah. I think what I indicated before has been covered. Sorry. I think it's actually been covered by the legal advice. What I was wondering was whether, if this is passed, there could be a condition put on that no property is connected or no property is occupied until there was capacity within that sewerage. But I think we've been told that in this instance we can't use that condition. But have we actually asked Yorkshire Water or the water company, is the capacity? How have we phrased the question? Because that's how you get the answer sometimes, isn't it? Thank you.
I think there are situations in other places where concerns have been raised by Yorkshire Water about capacity. So if they were saying there was a capacity issue, I'm sure they would have said that on this application. But also highlight this site is an allocation in the local plan. They were consulted on the local plan, and it was adopted as a site in the local plan on the basis that.
I appreciate all of that, and I appreciate that certainly my hands are tied in moving refusal on this application. Although we're hearing, constantly hearing, there is a major problem.
Councillor Nord.
Thank you, Chair. I think we were told, correct me if I'm wrong now, my colleagues at Area Committee, I think we might have all been there, when a customer services director came from Yorkshire Water to speak to us, there's only the ones, and he said their routine response was not to object to any development. That was, do you remember that? I think I'm right. That was their routine, whatever. They just said, we will not object to development. That may be connected or not to what you said, Councillor Brown, about they're getting £1,000 for each connection. So that's the first point.
Is there a question, otherwise we're straying into the debate?
Sorry, that was a piece of information, Chair. Secondly, I remember from the Kebble homes, we knew from Yorkshire Water, I think you gave us that information, that Yorkshire Water had noted that there was a problem with capacity. So we naturally objected to it because at the Kebble homes, Yorkshire Water told us that there was problem with capacity. So we naturally objected to it, if I remember rightly. Just trying to stick to the facts here, Chair. And then it was overturned at Bristol by people who... anyway.
And
the other thing is the local plan. I think generally people don't object to the housing being built. They just want the proper infrastructure to be there. So to say that it's in the local plan is... regardless, really, we need, as councillors, we're concerned that the infrastructure is there to start with. Hopefully I'm not struggling to debate there, Chair. Just wanted to add those into the mix.
Thank you. Councillor Heseltine.
I was just giving some thought to when we refused the other application in Ripon for 23 houses, and the reasons given were very similar to what we're debating today. But the Secretary of State Inspector allowed that on appeal. Just how far are we away from local democratic involvement being removed through non-determination on this application? Could we have the date, please, somebody? You are well aware it runs from when it was said to be a correct application. Or are we past it? Not members past it, but...
That could be something.
Let's find out.
Yeah, we have the
So I think the question was, the question was around non-determination. When a planning application is submitted, it has to be determined within a certain amount of time. So Councillor Heseltine was asking, are we close to that deadline by when we have had to have determined the application, or have we gone past it even?
Sorry, I understand the question now, sorry. We agreed an extension of time with the developer to the 19th of December for determination. 19th of December this year.
Well, it'll be a Christmas present to somebody, Chairman.
Councillor Nick Brown again.
Can I just come on to condition 15? Could we amend that? Well, it's not a condition, it's a condition there. But as far as we're determining this this application, would it not be right that we see the details of this particular condition before we determine this application? Because it says it to be agreed. Well, you know, that's anything. I mean, we have got serious problems because we have targets within North Yorkshire Council, and willy-nilly, if some of these go to appeal, perhaps they will be under alterations to the National Planning Policy Framework over anything we say may be overturned. But I do think that that's not a condition, that's a requirement before we actually determine this application.
Yes. Chair, if I may.
Full detail.
The requirement of condition 15 and the approval at the authority, that was a discharge of condition. That isn't something that would revert back to planning committee for determination. That will be dealt with through a discharge of condition by officers, but in consultation with any relevant parties, such as the LFA.
Because it says the separate system should extend to the points of discharge to be agreed. Well, all these things are a bit up in the sky, and anyway, we'll leave that for debate.
Councillor Andy Brown.
I just suggest point of order that we moved to the next stage.
Okay. If nobody has anything further for the officers, then we shall move to the speakers. So if you just bear with me. So we have three speakers today. Mr David Richhold, who's an objector. We have Councillor Dean Culshaw, who's the Chair of Bishop Monkton Parish Council, and Mr Chris Megson, who will speak on behalf of the applicant. Could I remind you all that you have 5 minutes to speak from when you start speaking. We are quite strict on the 5-minute rule, just for the need to be fair to everybody. So if I could invite Mr Richhold to come and speak to us first, please. If you could press the button on the microphone that's got the face on it when you're about to speak. Thank you.
And the microphone only works if you put your mouth near it.
Pardon?
The microphone only works if you near it.
Chairman, members, thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is David Richhold. I spent 55 years in architecture, planning, building regulations and appeals, the last 30 years as a sole practitioner in North Yorkshire. I was also a councillor for 10 years on Harrogate Borough Council at the time when the local plan was being developed, and I objected to the two sites that we have approved, I'll hold that up, have approved Church Farm and the site that we are discussing today.
I objected because they were on the wrong side of the village to the sewage farm. The sewage farm is here. You can see where they are. And any drainage, of which we've always had problems, sewage and foul and surface water drainage, has to go through the village. My argument was that they are on the wrong side of the village. I was told, not politely, not to bother raising that because the decision had already been made. In sequence, we provided this our parish plan, 2008. The local plan started developing in 2014. So the application for Church Farm was, and you were very brave to refuse it on sewage grounds. That was the second decision. That's where they said the system was near capacity. The system, that is the drainage works down at the bottom. There is only 2 of those round circles, and that was built in 1990. That plan's from 1990, when there were 100 houses in the village. There's now 400 houses with the same drainage system and combined drainage system. With the Church Farm application and with this application, it will add another 100 houses. We've already done with that. We don't have a problem with a van application. We understand it's in the local plan and therefore it can't be refused. But there is a solution, and I've heard all the conversations that you've had around there. And the solution came to me in my building magazine. It came to me last Monday. And it's a large item. As you can appreciate, we are not the only authority with problems with sewage, but Anglian Water Authority are the main people who are having problems with it. And this article, 4 pages, says Anglican, if it's a new application that is not already in the local plan, if there isn't capacity, and that's the magic word in relation to sustainability, if there isn't capacity, they recommend refusal. You can't do that, and the planning officer can only recommend approval to this because Yorkshire Water have said they've no objections. There's no justification to that at all. There wasn't any justification to them saying they're near capacity, and that is the problem. What it says in this article, if there is a site that becomes up for planning and has already been included in the planning application, then there can be a condition attached to the approval, a Grampian condition. And they actually quote it in here, and there is legal precedent for this. There's already legal precedent. Anglian have done it, so you're not taking any risks like you were last time when you refused Church Farm, and the inspector totally ignored all.
You've got about 40 seconds or something like that.
Okay, thank you. The great problem, I ask you to include a Grampian condition. The other main items of concern are the highways. We don't believe the junction with a raised platform is suitable. There is already a little girl in hospital and crippled for life from that junction. The photographs that you saw were very carefully chosen. If you go down to the junction and look left, you can't see left because of a garage. If you come in the other way and a car's parked where the photograph shows the car parked, it's very dangerous. We ask you to impose mainly a condition, a Grampian condition, saying any development should be restricted until, and the houses occupied until an independent.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Sewage. Thank you very much. Thank you.
If I could ask Councillor Dean Culshaw to come forward and speak to us. Once again, you have 5 minutes from when you start speaking. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Dean Coulshaw, Chairman of the Parish Council. Bishop Monkton Parish Council continues to object to the planning proposal based on the following four major themes. Water infrastructure. It's well known the village floods every year, and it does this at times of heavy rainfall. Sewage on the street from heavy rainfall, not in proper use. The surface and foul water infrastructure was designed and constructed in the 1900s when the village had 200 houses. Bishop Monkton currently has over 300 houses. Yorkshire Water have said openly that Bishop Monkton is currently close to capacity. Since that statement, 30 more houses have been built or approved to be built. This new application for 58 houses means over a 33% increase in housing. It is disingenuous to say that capacity has not been reached, but nobody puts pressure on Yorkshire Water to prove it has capacity. Design of properties. A walk around the village will show a wide variety of building materials have been used, including many using cobble and stone. The developer has none. We would like to see this feature incorporated in this development. Highway infrastructure. Bishop Monkton is poorly served by access roads. They are very narrow, single lane in many places. This new development will add many car journeys per day. The planning estimate of 35 journeys per day is unrealistic. There is a very poor bus service, and talk of car sharing and working from home as mitigation is just wishful thinking. The footpath on Moor Road. There is no safe way of walking up Moor Road to the A61 where villagers can access frequent bus services to Harrogate and Ripon. More houses, more people making more unsafe journeys up Moor Road. However, should the committee decide to approve the application, the Parish Council wants to comment as follows. Surface water management. We strongly support option 2. For the record, we are the landowner and have no objection. We strongly object to option 1, which will dump the water into the exact place where the major flooding occurs in the village. We'd also want to see some of the conditions of approval strengthened and some new ones added. These are gypsum. We are concerned that the current report is not rigorous enough. The survey from the geological consultants was inadequate, involving shallow investigations and ignored data from earlier deep investigations. Boundaries. A permanent, secure boundary must be installed along all shared boundaries. The boundary design must be appropriate to the rural setting and installed prior to the first occupation. Any maintenance to be covered by the appropriate management company. Moor Road footpath. We would like to see the internal path connect with the crossroads to provide a safe walking route up Moor Road for other villages for part of the way, ideally extended externally up to the 30-mile-an-hour sign. Finally, we come back to sewage and water infrastructure. We would like to see a Grampian condition imposed. A recent legal opinion from King's Council on under-capacity sewerage infrastructure and Grampian conditions says, and I quote, a pre-commencement condition would be the most appropriate in circumstances where insufficient evidence has yet been provided to demonstrate whether and when a necessary upgrade is required to take place. Yorkshire Water have provided no evidence. Bishop Monkton's sewage work is one of the least effective in the whole region, actually 11th worst out of 2,000. According to water industry statistics, Yorkshire Water have discharged into the River Ure from the Bishop Monkton sewage site 184 times over the last 12 months. Yorkshire Water are clearly pumping sewage into the River Ure under normal circumstances because the infrastructure is not adequate. A 30% increase in demand with no increase in capacity is a recipe for disaster. The King's Council goes on to say, what is clear is 1, evidence of harm likely to be caused by sewage discharges from a proposed development will be a material consideration in a planning determination, and 2, the imposition of the Grampian condition preventing development from the proceedings is one lawful way of dealing with the situation. You have a remedy. Instead of being whitewashed by Yorkshire Water, stand up to them, stand up for the existing and future residents of Bishop Monkton. Ask Yorkshire Water to provide there is capacity. Ask them to show you the data.
Thank you, that's your time. Thank you very much. Thank you. Could I invite Mr. Chris Megson, who's going to speak to us on behalf of the applicant? Thank you. Once again, 5 minutes from when you start speaking.
Members, thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon. I'm Chris Megson, here on behalf of Alpha Homes Limited, which is a company within the Avant Homes umbrella. First of all, I'd like to start by supporting the officer's recommendation of approval before you today. The recommendation is the culmination of many months of hard work and collaboration with officers, consultees and the Parish Council, which I think is reflected in the quality of the scheme before you today. Before I discuss any of the technical matters, I'll begin by focusing on the principle of development. As the officers set out in their presentation, the site is allocated for housing in the Elder District Local Plan, adopted in March 2020. The local plan allocation establishes that the site is clearly sustainable and a suitable location for development. In a report, the officers also made reference to the Council's housing land supply position, which we've not really discussed actually so far in this debate, but the land supply currently stands at 2.2 years, significantly short of the required 5 years. As the new North Yorkshire Plan is some way off from adoption, it really is important that the Council support development across the existing allocations to ensure that the housing land supply does not diminish further. Failure to do so will leave the Council ever more susceptible to speculative developments on green and grey belt sites, as well as those outside settlement limits in less sustainable locations. Supporting the development of allocated sites is the most effective way the Council can mitigate this risk. We therefore welcome the officers' support of the application in principle. Just quickly before I turn to those relevant technical matters, I just want to spend a moment on design, which I know the parish chair has just referenced there. We've worked really closely with officers across the last year to develop a low-density scheme which we believe is locally distinctive and befitting of the site's location on the edge of Bishop Monkton. We've strived to ensure that every house type on the development is unique through the use of locally distinctive architectural and design features. Of the many sites Avant Homes deliver across the country, this is easily one of our strongest and most unique schemes, and I'm pleased that officers share the view that the design of the development meets the high bar established in Policy HP3 of the local plan. Turning to the technical matters, members will clearly be aware that there are significant concerns from local residents in relation to drainage and possible flooding, given historical problems in Bishop Monkton. Indeed, having attended the public meeting with residents in October of last year and subsequent meetings with the Parish Council, we really do understand just how much of a sensitive issue this is. As a result of these discussions, we developed the second option that you've been discussing today for surface water drainage. This option will see surface water directed around the village rather than to the beck within the centre of the village. This option would obviously clearly negate disruption along Hungate. Although both of the drainage options are supported by the LLFA and Yorkshire Water, we continue to favour the second option along with the Parish Council. And although we fully intend to deliver option 2, we have retained details of option 1 within the application for the reasons set out by the officer and legal officer earlier. To be clear, these options do deal with surface water, not foul, as I think was previously suggested. Members will acknowledge that both drainage options are fully supported by the LLFA and Yorkshire Water and are therefore acceptable. As was the case with the Church Lane Keble Homes appeal case, there is no technical justification which would warrant a refusal of the application on drainage grounds. I'm not familiar with the Anglian Water case that the objector referred to there, but I would suggest that refusal of the application on drainage grounds, it would not be risk-free as suggested. The Keble Homes appeal and the award of costs has demonstrated that. I'm sure the debate will focus more on drainage issues, and we have invited our drainage consultant Martin Huddleston to answer any technical queries you may have. One of the other key issues raised by the parish chair there was in relation to highways impact. We've worked closely with the Highways Authority to design an appropriate upgrade to the Moor Road Knaresborough Road junction. The provision of the raised table, along with the additional pedestrian crossings, will help the junction operate safely and will result in an overall improvement in terms of highway safety. And we note that the local Highway Authority raises no objection. I'm aware that there are other issues within the public objections which sadly I don't have time to address in great detail, but I would reiterate that the officer has comprehensively dealt with all of those issues in a report, so I'll begin to wrap up. In summary, the development proposals before you today are the culmination of many years of hard work, and this has resulted in a technically robust and high-quality development, which officers agree is compliant with the development plan. The scheme will give rise to a number of benefits, including the provision of 58 new homes, 23 affordable houses and 4 bungalows, significant financial contributions for infrastructure improvements and further payments through SIL, significant improvements to the junction that I just discussed there, and the 10% biodiversity net gain delivered on and off-site. So I'll conclude today by thanking members and respectfully requesting that they support the application before them today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, if we could move on to the debate, is that your hand raised, Councillor Brown?
I was just speaking to the debate.
Right, I will pass over to Councillor Brown.
We've been very badly let down, haven't we? This committee no longer has the power to represent the people who elected us. We're driven by rules set way above us, and if this site meets those rules, we've got no choice other than to pass it. I voted to turn down the last site in Bishop Monckton, and I thought on strong heritage grounds and on strong sewage capacity grounds, the decision was turned over and appealed, and we paid costs. This time round, the critical factor is that we've been very, very badly let down by Yorkshire Water. The second Yorkshire Water sits there and says there is no comment. It effectively says that whatever comes off this site, they will deal with, and that's it. And all the developers got to concern themselves with is taking the liquid off the site. And to be fair to the developer, they've complied and actually tried to think hard about a second option, which is going to be massively better for the village. The problem doesn't sit with the developer; it sits with Yorkshire Water, who've been smug. They've been inaccurate. They've a duty to provide capacity which they've failed in. We've heard about 184 discharges into the River Yore, and I think they've been driven by financial self-interest, and we are hand-bound by that. So I think one of the things I'm going to suggest in a minute is we pass a resolution from this committee calling on Yorkshire Water to provide us with better information in the future. We've also been let down somewhat by national government, who've got a presumption in favour of development set by the last government, and the current one saying effectively build baby build, and it's extraordinarily difficult to turn anything down. To be fair to the developer, if you actually look at the specifics, it's got the affordables, it's got a good mix of housing types, it's on a site designated in the local plan, it includes solar panels and good insulation, it has design that's of reasonable quality. I'd have loved to have seen that point about cobble and stone, but they've engaged in serious debate about what should be in there. And they provided suitable biodiversity offset. Basically, the fact that I think that the sewage discharges and the foul water discharges are a concern, I haven't got a crapping else chance of turning it down on that basis, I think, and making it stick. So, I think the only thing we can ask is that the officers give us a commitment that they're going to work really, really hard to see that option 2 is the one that is actually delivered. And we have to rely on those conditions we've got, which, as I understand them, put the officer in charge of saying, the second option 2 looks like it's realistic, they can agree it, and if it can't be made realistic, they've got a fallback, which is a very bad fallback, but unavoidable. So I can't see anything I can do to stop it, and the only thing I can suggest is that we pass a resolution saying this committee calls on Yorkshire Water to provide reliable assessments of system capacity when assessing developments in North Yorkshire, and we consider the information available to us provided by Yorkshire Water to be inadequate to enable us to make fully informed, appropriate decisions. And I think that's a dreadful situation, and they should be excavated as they collect their hefty paychecks, some of which are paid via an offshore account. that looks very dodgy to me.
Councillor Brown, can I suggest that you put that suggestion forward under any other business at the end of the
will
meeting?
do.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Councillor Nick Brown.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm going to ask for something because at the moment we've got two options which we don't know what the option they're going to choose between the developer and the planner is going to be. And I would personally like to see a deferment until we know exactly what the scheme is they're going to put forward, because I think that's the least that the residents of Bishop Monckton could expect. I do think, I agree with some of my namesake's comments. I think the developer has tried, bearing in mind that this particular site originally was going to be getting on for 90 houses, and so it's 58 houses, which is a downside better under the circumstances we face in Bishop Monckton. But I do still feel that Yorkshire Water, and I agree with everything you've said, Yorkshire Water is honour bound, morally and everything else, to make sure that we do not have any additional sewage on the streets, because they are being linked to the Yorkshire Water system, who have to get rid of the foul sewage. And I really feel that we should defer this application briefly, perhaps, until we get the actual scheme that is going to go ahead. And I really feel very sad that it's come to this, because yes, it is in the local plan, which before my time as the councillor for Bishop Monckton, it seems that apart from David Richard, it seemed the parish council in those days didn't really object to some of the things that David Richard mentioned. I had to deal with this when I became the councillor for Bishop Monckton, and we are where we are because the 2020 local plan was approved statutorily, and we are where we are with it. But I do feel that before we actually sign on the dotted line and say we approve this application, we should know what we're talking about and what effect this is going to have on the sewage disposal and everything else in the village. And I hope that Yorkshire Water would be asked, not in your motion that you're going to put forward, but in this case, to come back to us and tell us, because if there are Caddics and all these other people coming along to put forward schemes, we need them to tell us what the capacity situation is in Bishop Monckton. And I feel that I'm not prepared to approve this application. I think a short deferment to get this information, if we can get it, with an emphasis on Yorkshire Water attending the meeting and telling us what they're going to do about the sewage on the streets.
I'm just going to ask Kelly if she can just jump in here and give us some advice on whether we can actually defer on that basis or not. My concern is what we're asking is to defer on the basis of something that we have no definite timeline on, because presently the sewer under option 2 is unadopted, and we don't know if or when it's going to be adopted, which means that could open us up to an appeal on the basis of non-determination, because we can't put any timescale on this. So, Kelly, could you just clarify that for us, please?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I mean, a deferral for an indefinite period of time would be unwise at best and arguably unreasonable. Obviously, it'd be open to the applicant to make an application for non-determination to the Secretary of State for them to determine the application and take effectively that decision away from the local planning authority in its entirety. As the Chair has alluded, that period of time is just an unknown quantity at this period of time, when the two options that are available are both deemed acceptable in planning terms to deal with it.
Chairman, I don't think it's unreasonable what the legal advice is on this, that we have a time frame for everybody to get their act together and try and come back to us with what the scheme is, so everybody in the village knows what is happening. I think it's only fair that happens. And I would still prefer put a motion forward for deferment until maybe 6 months' time or whatever, to allow the various parties to get their act together, and Yorkshire Water to tell us what the situation is in this particular site.
Chairman, if I may, effectively there would be no guarantee in 6 months' time you would have your answer effectively, because obviously there are unknown elements that need to play out in terms of the two options.
They're still unknowns, because there's options. So we don't know what the planning authority is wanting us to prefer to, out of all the things we've heard today.
The report clearly states which is the preferred option of all the parties, and that's what members have heard today. And it also explains that both options are acceptable in planning terms. Therefore, there is no... Normally you would defer if you required further information to be able to determine whether or not something is acceptable or otherwise. In this situation, you're being advised by officers that these have been considered and are both acceptable.
Can I just check as well? I think there would be a reliance then placed on Yorkshire Water to actually engage in this process, and I don't think we can compel Yorkshire Water to do that, because what we're talking about is this drain going to be adopted, and are Yorkshire Water going to also say yes, that's fine to connect into there? And we can't compel Yorkshire Water to do that, I don't think.
Thank you, Chairman. No, we can't. And this particular committee has actually asked Yorkshire Water to attend on previous occasions, to which that they've chosen not to attend to answer members' questions. So it's not something within our gift or power to require them to do, to come and attend. Obviously, they've not objected to the application, that they have said, subject to these conditions, it is acceptable to them. And as I've already outlined earlier on this afternoon about their statutory undertaker duties to then deal with any infrastructure upgrades that are necessary to deal with that capacity, should it arise.
Chairman, I understand that the Chief Executive of North Yorkshire is seeing Nicola Shaw, I think she's called, who's Chief Executive of Yorkshire Water, later this week. Maybe he could ask that question and express this planning committee's views about Yorkshire Water to the head of Yorkshire Water. But I still feel that a limited deferment to try and get Yorkshire Water to come out of its closet and tell us what their plans are would be very useful before making a decision on this application.
As regards any communications to Yorkshire Water, can you bring that up under any other business like Councillor Brown's going to bring it up? If we as a committee resolve that we want to put forward our view to anyone in particular, then that's actually a separate matter. And it's a bigger matter, without being disrespectful to those people sat in the room. It encompasses all kinds of future applications, not just this one. So maybe if we do that under any other business. Do you have anything else for the moment, Councillor Brown, or can I go over to Councillor Ireton for the moment?
I have nothing more to say, really. I just feel that we should know exactly what the position is going to be without leaving it to others to agree something which we may not find acceptable in a month or two's time.
So Councillor Ireton, then Councillor Brodigan.
Thank you, Chairman. I've heard that both options that have been put forward are acceptable, unless I have misunderstood, that both options are acceptable. There is a preferred option, I think it was option 2 that the Parish Council preferred, and I believe the developer preferred on that. So I think to defer it for that, Councillor Brown, is just prolonging the problem. I feel very, very sorry for the residents of the Bishop Monkton, isn't it?
We're getting used.
I genuinely feel sorry for you, because I'm going to move approval of the application, because I don't think there's any other option. I would like to see the Grampian thing on it. We've been told by our legal officer that that would not be possible, unless again I've misunderstood that, where we could have put a condition on that no property is actually lived in until the connection to the sewerage. But we have again been told that Yorkshire Water are saying that there is not a lack of capacity. It's not what you people are saying.
Where's the facts? Where are their figures?
Absolutely. Yeah. So therefore, Chairman, I'm going to move approval of the application. Regrettably, I think we have been let down by Yorkshire Water with their response. When there is known, I'm sure they must have had letters, emails, telephone concerns about the state of the sewer in Bishop Monkton.
20 years.
They must have, definitely.
They must have.
They don't, of course they have.
But from a planning point of view, I feel that there is no option but to move the recommendation of approval. Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I'm just going to invite Kelly to come in here for a moment.
No, I was just going to clarify on the grappling condition point. There is, if you look at conditions 12 and 13, they are both pre-commencement conditions for those details to be. So I don't think the grappling condition is necessary or meet the test to have a separate one. So there is, I just wanted to emphasise that there is the controls and balances in place to make sure that those schemes are approved and looked at by the relevant officers.
Yeah. But the condition 10 is on-site drainage. You know, it's the discharge of that drainage, isn't it, where the problem is. It's not the drainage within the development, but it's where it discharges to.
12, 13 and 15.
Those are already conditioned on from the 12, 13 and 15 anyway, because they're pre-commencement conditions, so no property could be occupied until those conditions have been discharged anyway. Councillor Brodigan and then Councillor Heseltine.
Thank you, Chair. I think what I wanted to say has been said already by my colleagues, but I'd like to second the motion. The motion from Councillor Ireton is that we go to approve, regrettably approve this, because I can't see, we don't have, our hands are tied, there are no material considerations that we can actually put in place to object to this. It is regrettable. You are let down, the residents, you are let down, but you're let down both by the planning conditions that we have to abide by, you're let down by the national policy framework for planning, you're let down by the government and you're let down by the water companies. Unfortunately, a lot of those things are out of our hands. So I'd like to second that motion, regrettably. Thank you.
Councillor Heseltine.
In 2 years' time, there's going to be another one.
Yeah.
Every time, say it.
I'm really sorry. Councillor Heseltine.
Actually, those of us who are wishing certainty on the sewage situation, which we know exists, there are problems now, and a gut feeling there's going to be problems in the future. But this is an allocated site, is it not, Chair? On consultative responses, Parish Council are strongly against, and I fought it exceptionally well. With other consultative responses, all 15 have no objection, including the proverbial Yorkshire Water. Those of us who do wish for that certainty are between a rock and a hard place. We can't get away from that. If this application goes through non-determination to the Secretary of State, I'd put every ape in the eye out that the Secretary of State will look at the facts, and the facts say that it's satisfactory, apart from sewage. And with Yorkshire Water sitting on the fence for whatever reasons, I suppose the temptation of thick end of 70,000 coming in through rates on this site. Very tempting to be quiet. But we have evidence put before us today from a speaker that elsewhere in this nation the Grampian condition would be correct in circumstances that we have faced today. And I would hope that our solicitor young lady can find sufficient loophole that we can actually put that Grampian condition on and give the people of Bishop Monkton some degree of certainty that we've done our best.
Thank you. I can only support this if I agree with Councillor Stein. The Grampian condition was put in. It seems the least we can do here. Secondly, can you confirm, I've read, but there are proposals for drainage systems and proposals for this and written details for that. Does it say anywhere that no house can be occupied until those systems are built? And I can't find evidence of that. Could you help me, please, Chair?
It's a pre-commencement condition, so by its very nature, work can't start, I understand, until we've dealt with that condition that's been satisfied. But
my question, Chair, is does it have to be built? I mean, plans fine. I mean, there are plans for it now as we sit here, but I'm
going to pass over to Stuart.
Thank you, Chair.
It's in the last paragraph of condition 13, as has been said, that the start of condition 13 says the development shan't commence until that scheme's been agreed for the development by runoff. But then in the last paragraph it says no part of the development shall be brought into use until the development flow restriction works comprising the approved scheme be completed. And then it also adds the improved maintenance and management scheme should be implemented throughout the lifetime of the development.
Thank you. So can I just go back to the Grampian condition that my colleague Councillor mentioned? Can we include that, please?
Thank you, Chairman. The Grampian condition point, you would only be looking to attach a Grampian condition, which we have done on other sites, but only where there is a capacity issue. And on this situation, Yorkshire Water do not say there is a capacity issue to be resolved prior to. And the Grampian condition would be attached in order to have that evidence demonstrated or the scheme submitted prior to. But there's obviously there's no hurdle to overcome effectively by a Grampian condition in this scenario.
So I think, sorry, we can't take comments from the floor. So technically, there's no hurdle to overcome. We might have, a different opinion as to whether on a practical basis this is a live issue or not. But by imposing the condition, I think in itself that would be an unreasonable condition on technical grounds. Whether on practical grounds it would be a wise thing to do or not is a different matter. What can I say, Mr. Solicitor, the law is an ass.
Chancellor Brown. Yeah, all I wanted this short deferment to be put forward as a motion was to try and get some certainty out of this. Yes. Rather than two schemes, which we don't know what the outcome's going to be of that.
We know that they're both acceptable.
Both acceptable to the planning office.
That's the problem.
But, one is better than the other. So if they choose the one that's worse, are we going to be sitting back and saying, oh, that's fine? I'm not going to say that. That's why I shall vote to refuse it until we have some certainty and put the pressure, which we will in the motion have shortly, on Yorkshire Water to come clean and not go to ground as they have been doing.
I think one of the issues is we can't say that one is worse, only that one's preferred, because option one is, we are told, acceptable, so by definition it's not a bad option, it's just something that may be slightly better.
It's acceptable to our planners, not necessarily to this committee. We prefer option 2.
It's acceptable to me, Councillor Brown. Yeah.
I'm afraid to say, on technical grounds, it's acceptable to me. I might not like it, but I'm having to say that having read through everything before us today and the application before us and the information we've been provided with, which is the only basis upon which I can make a decision. I can only make a decision on the recommendations and the information in front of me. Whilst I might not like it, I feel my hands are tied, and so I'm going to be voting in support of the application subject to the conditions as are set out before us, Councillor Brown.
You're talking all about surface water. The Commission doesn't apply to surface water.
I'm sorry, we can't take interjections.
I absolutely hate saying this, but when Yorkshire Water said it had no comment, that basically technically indicates they believe there is capacity. If they believe there is capacity, our legal advice is that we have no leg to stand on for either delaying or voting against. So we're absolutely sunk, and I utterly blame Yorkshire Water for abrogating their responsibilities. I think their chief executive, who's paying herself I think it's 1.4 million via an offshore account on top of her salary via some strange arrangement. These people are letting us down very badly, but we have to be realistic. If we don't pass it today, it will go through an appeal and we will have less control. The only reason I'm going to vote for something I absolutely hate is because I think I put more control in the hands of the officer to squeeze every drop of that condition out. And I am therefore going to vote for it, because if it goes to appeal, the officer has no control, loses all ability to any restraint over it. So I'm going to try and give us some kind of control in a situation where Yorkshire Water has cut the ground from under everybody's feet here today.
Does anyone else want to go? Okay, if nobody else has anything further to say or add, we will go to the vote. So all those in favour of the officer's recommendation that we we grant the planning permission as set out before us, subject to the conditions as read, please raise your hands. Okay. Any against? Any abstentions?
Yes, I'm abstaining. I need a clear conscience to sleep tonight. And to vote for it, I never get on to sleep.
Well, it would seem that regrettably, we have passed that application by a vote of 4-2 with 1 abstention. Okay. Is this under any other business?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so if we could move on to the next item on the agenda, which is agenda item 5 items of any other business. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I propose that this committee sends a message to Yorkshire Water saying this committee calls on Yorkshire Water to provide reliable assessments of system capacity when assessing developments in North Yorkshire. We consider the information available to us provided by Yorkshire Water today to be inadequate to enable us to make fully informed, appropriate decisions. So I'll repeat that. This committee calls on Yorkshire Water to provide reliable assessments of system capacity when assessing developments in North Yorkshire. We consider the information available to us provided by Yorkshire Water inadequate to enable us to make fully informed, appropriate decisions. You got that? Okay, if there's any doubt, I'll let them know, you can come back to me. Would anybody second that?
No, second that.
My only concern is slightly around the wording, is because what you're potentially saying is that we acknowledge that as a committee we are impotent. So
yes, that's exactly what.
but by acknowledging that we're impotent, do we then leave ourselves open to challenge on every single application whatsoever? People say, well, you've admitted you're impotent. Perhaps it would be better if we were to insert the word assist us in making, in determining applications.
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'm happy to insert the word assist us.
Is that okay? Sorry, once a lawyer, always a lawyer.
My seconder sounds like it's all
Could we also ask you, Chairman, as Chairman of the Planning Committee, to write to Yorkshire Water and ask what capacity there is within the sewerage system in Bishop Monkton. I keep wanting to say, I can't. I keep wanting to say Monkton.
I'm happy to cobble something together, but if I do that, I'd like to run it past Andy first. So that we don't have to say Is that okay?
Yeah. So let's ask the question then.
Yeah.
We've heard from the residents there's a dreadful overflow sewerage going up through drains. What is the capacity?
So I think we need to take a vote on the resolution first of all.
Yeah.
So mover, seconder.
Chairman,
We're going to come to yours in a moment, I think, because you had an additional matter, didn't you, to bring up?
I was just going to mention that I will vote for this motion, but Yorkshire Waters have us by the because they're laughing all the way to the bank. Yes, they're not a statutory consultee, as I understand it, and basically they don't have to say anything but no comment. Yeah.
Could the public
very
unsatisfactory. We still have a meeting going on here and we can't hear what we're doing, I'm afraid. So, sorry, we're just going to go back to, we're going to vote on Andy's resolution to submit that letter to Yorkshire Water as worded, which I think Vicky and Kelly have made a note of. So,
there's been very strong words and expressions used against Yorkshire Water in public debate today. And names have been mentioned at Yorkshire Water. Could we be very, very careful that there's nothing that we can be taken legally against it?
well, I think that's a matter down to individual councillors.
I take responsibility with the names I've used because I've put them in print already.
The officers are putting something together to send to North Yorkshire on our behalf.
Move to the vote, Chairman.
Sorry, can we just take the vote on the resolution? All those in favour? Any against? Any abstentions? Sorry, I very rudely interrupted you. I'm just conscious some people may want to leave the meeting, which is why I did that.
I mean, obviously it's a matter for individual members, what is said during a debate. The meeting is recorded and that will be uploaded. The minutes, however, would just be a summary reflection of the meeting, and we rarely would name the party names in any minutes.
I think you missed my point. You missed my point. That if we're sending something on behalf of the member to Yorkshire Water in written form, then it's open to libel.
There's no mention of the name of the person or any insult of Yorkshire Water in the motion. What I've said in public here, I would be very happy for them to sue me for saying.
And Chairman, I mean, what has been said about individuals at Yorkshire Water have been in the press for months and months and months, if not years.
True facts.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything else for today's meeting? All right, so...
Chairman, can I just clarify then that you're going to talk to the Vice Chair about writing to Yorkshire Water as well as this...
as well, yes.
As well as...
To find out what capacity there actually is in Bishop Monkton.
Okay. If there's no one else with anything for today's meeting,
more than one. 4,400 houses.
Just for the record, January's meeting is not going ahead due to the lack of an agenda. So the next meeting that we will have will be February, where I can find it. February the 3rd. It's a venue to be confirmed. Thank you for your attendance and your assistance.
Thank you, Chair. And may I wish everyone on the top table a Merry Christmas when it comes.